So me and two friends who had never played D&D before but really wanted to started a campaign with a mutual third friend who had also never DM'd before. We were all excited and had fun making our characters. The plot and character details aren't really that important. What is important is that it's a very lighthearted campaign. It wasn't really open world. It was more go from point A to point B, which we were all fine with. We would meet up at my house every once in a while to play a session. We would also just generally hang out as we were close friends. Now the campaign only lasted for 2 sessions, as on the second session we arrived in a town. The DM had a very specific idea for what he wanted us to do. I'm not really sure what the actual, but we were given a hint, and also the town we were in was creepy. Our objective was just to escape, but whenever any of us tried to do anything that veered off course, the DM had us stung by bees?
Hello, bees!
No con saves, no rolls, we were just stung by bees and knocked out. Sorry, you can't do this yet. We tried everything, but had no idea what the DM wanted. But every time we did something, we were stung by bees! I want to pick up the strange firearm and examine it for any... As you pick up the weapon, you get stung by bees. Whoa! 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 Okay, that sucked. It's getting kind of dark. Can I turn on my lantern? As you open your lantern, it's filled with bees. Oh my god! Oh my god. Those things are no joke. Alright, I'm just gonna take a short rest to regain some... Are you kidding me? Nah, I'm just kidding. It's all good. Just take your rest. It's all good. Oh, great. Awesome. Actually, I changed my mind. Oh, come on! We eventually decided to just end the session and hang out instead. We never ended up meeting for another, as the pandemic started, and honestly, it was not fun. The DM is a great person and genuinely one of my best friends, just not a great dungeon master. This was my only D&D experience, and I've yet to ever play another campaign. Still looking for people in my IRL life to play with. I'm just too nervous to play online. God, you hear about railroading all the time, but bee stinging? That is a new one for me. At least the DM is getting creative when it comes to taking away player agency. Hi Crispy, I've been a long-time listener of your channel. Thank you, by the way. And I've had this story rattling around in my head for a while now. There's nothing graphic or explicit like a lot of stories you read, but it is still the worst experience I've ever had in a tabletop role-playing game space so far. And I do realize I am at least partially responsible for the outcome. The important characters are problem player Jack, our usual group's DM Drake, and me, who at the time was taking over the GM role while DM Drake was taking a break. Damn, dropping bars like Drake too.
Bars! Bars!
Sorry. Jack has been part of the group for longer than I have, and a few of the other players have their own horror stories from him, but I'll leave it up to them if they want to tell those stories. Jack had a few annoying traits prior to the main event that led to him leaving the table, but they were more annoying than outright deal breakers. First of all, every single one of his characters was some variation of cold-hearted woman who could warm up to the party and oh... I just finished drafting a new NPC for a quest that's literally that. She's like my 5th version of that. Look, as a girlie who loves Amity, Songbird, and Shadowheart, I have 0 regrets! It's not a bad thing, right? Or at least that's how he described them. Usually they were just a-holes from beginning to end. Okay, that's bad. See, I don't do that. I'm not this guy, I swear. Second, he was a bit of a hypocrite around min-maxing. What I mean by this is that he would frequently brag about how he wasn't a min-maxer like the rest of you, then complain when another party member had something he didn't. For example, one time in the high-level campaign, around 15 to 16 I believe, most of the player characters had a 20 in their primary stat at that point, but he chose feats instead, leaving his cleric with an 18 in wisdom instead. Let's just get a feat. Wait a minute. Why do I have a 20 in my stats? This game's so unbalanced. He would then complain that his character's spell save DCs were 1 point lower than the rest of us. A weirder case was when we were doing a modified version of Death House from Curse of Strahd, where he was playing an artificer, then grumbled about having few spell slots than the full casters. We then proceeded to TPK and never got to Barovia properly, but that was just caused by the stupidity of the entire party and not him. Well, Death House is also famously bad. I mean, I haven't run it, but I've heard things. Anyway, this was an infrequent problem, Jack being a min-maxing hypocrite, not Death House. But when it did happen, it was really awkward. And third, he would not accept criticism whatsoever. The moment when we finally got rid of him was in the middle of a homebrew campaign. I was running it at the time. Jack was playing a Winter Eladrin?
Eladrin. Todd Kenrick says Eladrin. We can trust him.
Ah, there you go. Also, see, I'm not the only one with pronunciation problems. Jack's Winter Eladrin Monk, and Drake was playing a Dragonborn Death Cleric. Most importantly about the Dragonborn was that as a Death Cleric, he was tall and imposing, looming over people like the shadow of death. But he was a big softy internally. Also, some important context around the homebrew setting I was using is that in this world, Eladrin are formed from pieces of the soul of the respective archfey of the season of the Eladrin. Summer, winter, spring, autumn. While they were all individuals in their own right, they have an innate connection to and can be considered part of the Archfey. When an Eladrin dies, regardless of how good/evil it was in life, its soul will rejoin with the respective Archfey. The big bad evil guy, being a horror from beyond reality, had managed to slaughter a great deal of Eladrin of all varieties with a weapon that destroyed their souls, thus preventing them from rejoining with their Archfey. The Lady of Winter, being the Fey who was currently active at the time, felt this the most strongly. In grief, rage, and pain, she started leading innocent people out into the cold to freeze them to death so she could take their frostbitten souls to make more Eladrin and heal herself in the process. The party could not let this slide, especially as so many of the innocents were members of Drake's clerical order. I know everything's about to go to crap, so compliments now. Solid plot, and also great piece of advice for those of you who want to integrate player backstories, integrate them amongst each other. For example, we have Jack's Eladrin heritage mixed in with Drake's cleric backstory. It's that synergy, you know? But anyway, how does this all go wrong? Okay, after confronting the enraged Lady of Winter and knocking some sense into her, Drake's cleric used spiritual weapon to form a giant hand and slap the Archfey across the face to end the confrontation. As a bit of flavor, I said, as the hand strikes Winter itself, every single Winter Eladrin feels a sharp pain in their cheek as if they were just slapped in the face. Keep in mind, this dealt 0 damage to any creature other than the Lady of Winter herself. All the other Eladrin, they're fine. I just wanted to emphasize that there was some kind of connection, as a few players had doubts if this spirit was who she said she was. Cue Jack, whose Winter Eladrin walks in and shouts at the cleric for murdering elderly Eladrin and Eladrin children in their cribs. That's just out of left field.
Fool, your madness must end. If you refuse to see sense, I will make you! I do not want to hurt you anymore. Please, listen to me. Fine, I'll hear you out. Thank you. I just wanted to say that— You monster!
Dude, what are you even—
Your actions today have slaughtered literally thousands of my people. Old women in their beds, children in their cribs. Your slap of doom has damned them all.
Do you know what they're talking about?
Yeah.
No. Again, nothing like that had been established, and I never said the attack did damage to anyone other than this Archfey. This led to an argument, and because I wasn't used to handling situations like this, I didn't say anything. They proceeded to have their character leave in a huff and make a new character. I really should have corrected him, or just let him leave, but it was my first time really DMing, and I had no idea how to deal with this. Long story short, his new character was a being from the same plane as the big bad evil guy, trapped in the body of a Goliath due to a botched summoning, seeking it out in order to drag it back to its homeworld because they have unfinished business. I thought it was fine to essentially give a party member an alternate win condition for the campaign beyond killing the bad guy, so I thought, cool, might be a neat secret for a bit. Welp, introduction time comes, and his character introduces himself by kicking the door down to the tavern that the party's staying in, demanding to join them, and then, right out of the gate declaring, I'm from the BBG's homeworld, and I'm here to take it home. Even more egregiously, emphasizing multiple times that she's taller than the cleric and constantly looms over people, and is much more intimidating than the cleric, in spite of actually being kind, etc. By this point, it became very clear to me that this character was basically just made to spite Drake, as this character was just Drake's character, but bigger and better. Once again, being a newer game master and not being used to conflict resolution like this went unaddressed until the end of the session when Drake called him out on all of it. We tried talking it out, but in the end, he left on his own. The campaign went on much smoother without him, and overall, I would call the campaign a success. Making spite characters is unbelievably lame. Character creation, making people to include into this world, it's one of my favorite aspects of this game, whether it be NPC creation or player character creation. But corrupting that creative process just to spite someone else, you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're just gonna piss everyone else off. It's not cool, it's lame. So many minor problems here that I think I would actually chalk up to some covert main character syndrome. From the anger around Jack's character not having superior stats to everyone else, to randomly trying to center the plot around his own character through the whole slap of death plot, it just screams someone who wants the spotlight and doesn't know how to get it with any taste. I don't remember all the details of what happened, but here we go. I joined a homebrew campaign. This was back in 1920. That's not right. This was back in 1919 and 1920, with an ex of mine and 2 of his friends, one being the Dungeon Master and the other being a player. And the DM was super excited for this campaign because it was supposed to be a mix of Firefly and Skyrim. But the Dungeon Master had privately told me about the other friend, who we will call Commander. Okay, we're gonna stop that now. He was the problem player, and he would try and dictate everyone's decisions in the campaign, and what he said goes. I had seen him doing this during the campaign already and just tried shutting him down because it caused us to butt heads. The Dungeon Master reassured that he would try and keep him in line and let me play my character how I wanted, and he was excited for a new person joining because he was growing bored of just playing with Commander and my ex. I played a Tabaxi spaceship mechanic that was part of a Tabaxi clan that did trades with planets all over the galaxy. We got to one planet that was a huge advanced city with shops, flying motor vehicles, and a cargo bay where we heard there was a gang war happening in the city with the Mafia and the Yakuza. So we stopped at a sushi bar that was ran by the Yakuza, who were Kuatoa. That's interesting choice. Anyway, the owner/head of the totally not cannibal Yakuza, was a good friend of my character's family. They knew my character well when she was little because they did trades with us, and there my character was told that because of this gang war, her family was in danger. The Mafia was going to kill anyone who had connections with the Yakuza. This is where the story gets out of hand. Commander, hearing this news, again tries to dictate the situation and not wanting to be involved at all with the Mafia or the Yakuza, and basically summing up as not our problem to deal with, and you just need to do it yourself. And it was overall not hearing how this could impact my character.
Finally, after 20 sessions, we have finally reached my own quest hook. It's gonna be difficult, but I know that my party is going to have my back in this journey to rescue my... Yeah, don't really want to do it, sorry. It's kind of dangerous, alright? We don't know what these 2 warring criminal factions are up to. It's just out of our hands, okay? Dude, we just finished fighting a beholder and the stillborn fetus for God. I don't think 2 warring bandit factions are gonna be that big of a deal. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be dangerous, but, I mean, how is it worse than what we've done before? And besides, we're doing this to, like, save my family and stuff. Okay, yeah, sure, but you're ignoring my other point, that this is none of our business, alright? Why should we even care about this? It's not like anyone in this party actually has stakes in this. I'm part of... Yeah, whatever. Anyway, I think we should go after something a lot more reasonable. There's this extremely powerful red dragon guarding a horde of loot. Did someone leave the Discord call? So anyway, me being frustrated, I roleplay yelling at Commander, telling him that he was extremely selfish, and that he only thought of himself and his gains, and not for other people, that my family could get hurt, or worse, killed. This was basically summed up, because this was a very long and more angry, heartfelt speech. But the Dungeon Master had to end the session there, because me and Commander were arguing so much to the point I almost started crying out of anger. The Dungeon Master told me he was really glad that my character was sticking up for herself and her thoughts, and not just going along with his plans, and apologized for his behavior, but a part of me kind of feels bad as well, and I hoped I didn't ruin the experience for everyone by arguing with him. Shortly after the argument, my ex broke up with me, so I didn't get to finish my story with my character, but I do wonder to this day if I was the a-hole for role-playing yelling at him. I know, I always give this answer. I'll find one where I give a different one, but anyway, drumroll please. Not the a-hole! Now I will say, I don't have the exact wording of your speech. Based on what I read, it sounded fine, but obviously, if you are starting to bleed out of character, that is not a good idea. If bleed is happening, you should take it out of game. However, there's nothing wrong with having an impassioned speech during roleplay, especially since Commander started by being dismissive in roleplay to begin with.
I did the whole skit about this, but I'll go over it again. Individual arcs in role-playing games can be really, really cool. I mean, some of my favorite stories of all time have been stories like Ford's arc in Critical Role Campaign 2. They can make for amazing storytelling, but if a fellow party member discounts that, ignores that, and pushes past it, that sucks. In this case, frustration is absolutely called for. This is the story of my first ever tabletop role-playing game and how it was, like many others, maybe not the best. It's not the worst horror story ever told, but it's good to sometimes revisit. If only to see how far things have come since then. Apologies for the length, I really like to write. Prologue. There is a mini horror story that bears telling as a valuable source of context for later events. In the early 2000s, when I was in middle school, I tried to get into Dungeons & Dragons. I found an original first edition box set in my mom's basement, and so, thinking it would be a fun icebreaker, thither did I bear... Woman, you did not just say thither! You did not just thither me!
Thither.
Now! Anyway, took the box to my school's D&D club. Imagine a nervous, chubby, 11-year-old girl walking into the cavernous cafeteria, clutching her precious cargo and walking across the echoing expanse to the one lit table of boys. Yeah, I hate those things too. I showed the box with its pamphlets and dice, mentioned that I'd read some Forgotten Realms books, and within 15 minutes, I was outside the cafeteria crying as the boys laughed behind me about the dumb girl who didn't know they played 3rd edition, not that stupid old stuff. Once home, I threw away the box. No need to kick me. I've been kicking myself in the years since. That box was pristine. And subsequent years of bullying over my other nerdy interests dissuaded me from trying any other tabletop role-playing games for many years. Anyway, fast forward to 2016. Wow. Again? Man, I just did a bit about how 2016 was a traumatic year for me. Glad to see I'm not the only one. Now, in my later 20s, I happened to glance in the LFG channel of a big Discord server I was in. Normally, that channel was for video game groups, but someone had gotten permission to post about a D&D 5th edition game that they were planning, and they were looking for players. I'd read many more books since my failed attempt in middle school, and my love for the Forgotten Realms and the entire premise of Dungeons & Dragons had only grown, so despite my anxiety, I messaged the Dungeon Master. I told him that I had a bad experience, that I was a complete N00B at 5th edition, that I was an anxiety-riddled introvert, etc. And he assured me that it would be fine. He even let me in to listen to the first session, conducted via Discord and Roll20, just to get to know the group and the game a bit. Okay, great. I can do this. So with the DM's help, I made my bard, Ariana Ravenwolf. Cousin to Darkness Dementia Ravenwolf. Sorry. A 200-plus-year-old high elf / drow who wandered into the world looking for beauty since she lost her wife a century ago. She always wore a mask and hood, completely hiding her skin and mixed heritage. She was to join a level 3 party comprised of a halfling monk, an Aarakocra fighter, a gnomish druid, a tiefling ranger, and chaos incarnate. Alright, I'm getting the vibe from this party. And no, there was no session 0, not for them and not for me. Foreshadowing to the fact that the DM just strapped a stick of dynamite to his dick and basically lit on fire. Awesome. Character creation was rough for a newbie, and there were a lot of choices made by the Dungeon Master, but eventually good enough, and we were off to the races. Very quickly, I began to have fun. Ariana was quickly and easily integrated, and found a way to bond with almost every player, except Chaos, who bonded with no one because I think they were having too much fun with a character that changed classes and alignments based on, I think, random dice rolls throughout the day. Okay, weird. But okay. Ariana bonded with Monk over Love Lost and even flirted with the fighter. She cooked with Ranger and shared knowledge of the Fae with Druid. It was amazing. And then the skeletons arrived. We were investigating fiendish activities, trademark, in the arena. Something about a family that made a deal with a fiendish entity. So every generation, a child would be born to the family with monstrous traits until the line died out. Nowadays, the land is cursed. Skellies all over. Fantastic. Let's go. After so many years, I can't remember quite how we learned this, but we learned that the Skellies were controlled by these glowing arcane stones. And we had to destroy the stones or the Skellies would not stay down. We made our way to the old creepy house, and in the basement found extra glowy arcane stones in definitely magical liquid. The Arcana checks were decidedly mid. We scoop out the stone without touching it and make to leave, when a new wave of skellies approach, eyes glowing the same color as the rock we just found. So, I have a brilliant bard moment, and I touch the stone. I thought maybe we could control the skellies that way or something, but nah, we fight, we win, and we return to the inn. Then, the DM messaged me during the long rest to let me know that the stone I touched has cursed me, and I was compelled to return to the house and put it back in its bath. The party eventually noticed I was gone and followed, and there was an honestly heckin' banger of a fight between me with invisibility and them. Eventually they caught me, and with emotions running high for everyone, the mistake was made. Fun fact about Ariana, like me, she's claustrophobic. Her backstory includes an extreme aversion to anything around her neck due to trauma, same as me. This particular point about her had come up in Campfire Roleplay, but remember that lack of Session 0? Well, Ariana was known to be claustrophobic. No one knew that about me. So when the monk put Ariana in a chokehold to subdue her, I kind of freaked out. Power of imagination, am I right? I almost hit panic attack immediately, but the joys of online play meant that no one seemed to pick up on it. We played the scene out, removed the curse, destroyed the stone, and went back to our inn before ending the session. I was still freaking out at this point, pacing my apartment not knowing really what to do, when Discord, Badoop? Oh, it's, you're like doing, I get it. She's making this sound. I think everyone else understands. It's Monk asking if I'm alright. Turns out he did pick up on my panic, and he felt horrible that he'd hurt a friend. He ended up staying up with me all night, just talking it out. That conversation ended up being our Session 0, where we went over triggers and emotional safety and discussed what we loved most and least about the game, and how we could do more for the parts that we loved. And after that, the game was more fun. Sadly, it was not to last. After about 9 months of glorious weekly play, the Dungeon Master messaged everyone the day before a session that it was too much. The game was over. Grab our characters from the Roll20 game and get out, because he was deleting everything in 24 hours. Dang! I have no idea how I'm gonna wrap up my last session, but man, if I do it like that, just saying, I wouldn't be mad if my friends wanted to punch me in the face.
How'd you?
Some things did last though. That late night talk with Monk, both of us panicking, upset, turned into 7 years and counting of beautiful, nerdy love. He even took over on the DM seat so that Ariana could have her full 1 to 20 campaign. After a 4-year campaign, she is now retired with her dwarven husband and is a serial foster mom. I couldn't be happier for her. And now, I'm the Dungeon Master. After a few modules, I'm running my first proper campaign. Druid still plays with us as a sorcerer, following along with our wonderful friends we've made over the years. My beloved Monk is now a mystic, and our campaign is in its 2nd year of weekly games after playing 47 out of 52 weeks last year. Ariana will always be my special girl, and I absolutely love being a Dungeon Master. Dude, heck yeah, another happy ending, and I think a well-deserved one. Honestly, the trigger incident is not the worst part of the story for me. I mean, obviously, it sucks. Panic attacks are just not fun. I have gotten them at Dungeons & Dragons games before, and yeah, as the Dungeon Master, it's really hard to push through. Luckily, it's never been from a trigger, it's usually just from built-up stress. In those cases, I lean on my friends if they're willing, or better yet, I just take a break. However, especially when it comes to triggers, having some kind of system or communication in place is just vital. It's so vital, not just for stuff like this, but just for having a good game in general. Session 0 is so simple, and with good enough friends, frankly, it can be so much fun just discussing everyone's characters together. But yeah, like I said, the worst part of the story isn't even that. The worst part is the DM just ghosting you and deleting everything in 24 hours. Dang, that's cold. I get wanting a break, by the way. I get it. Heck, I get wanting to quit too, but at least give them a little bit more notice to download everything. 24 hours is just, that's harsh. This was a table I played with a little while ago. There was a little plot line involving the royals of the kingdom that the campaign is set in, and how they really weren't all they're cracked up to be, specifically the king and the older princess. The first in line to the throne is Princess Serafina, dang, first try, who has many allegations of corruption, violations of trade agreements, and even the molding of slaves, many of which are children. The younger prince, Alaric, is 12 years old and has been tortured to have the memories of his father orchestrating a massacre erased, and the torture essentially lobotomized him, turning him into an obedient, almost robotic boy. The youngest princess is hidden from the public and kept in the cellar due to her status as a... Does YouTube regulate that word? Her status as a Jon Snow. There you go. Since his queen had an affair with a knight and died after giving birth to the princess. This was an amazing plotline, as the biological father of the younger princess helped us free his daughter, and they had a happy ending. But here comes the horror part. The Dungeon Master was notorious on the chat board for having a I don't know what that is. Actually, I am not gonna do this to myself. I'm setting boundaries right here. And one of those boundaries is, I don't want to know what this is. But anyway, he projected this thing onto us in the story of the older prince, Ramiel. When we met Ramiel, we know he resents his wife, Sharua. I was doing so good with the names until that one. Anyway, he hates his wife due to his father's preference of her over him because she's more traditionally masculine and stronger than he is. How she's rarely home and leaves him to care for their disturbing amount of children. How she's always drunk when coming home and acts aggressive towards him and their children. All that. So we learned their backstory where Ramiel gets captured and Sheora was a mercenary who rescued him and the prize was Ramiel's hand in marriage. The first red flag was the age difference, where Ramiel was 17 and Sharua was 25 when she rescued him. And it has been 10 years since then, but then there was a strong implication that Sharua essentially coerced the prince into having, intimate relations with her as a reward and threatened to chop off his dang-a-lang if he said no. A tablemate told the dungeon master that this was 100% completely unnecessary to the plot. He also mentioned that they have so many children because when she approaches him to have, intimacy with her, he's so terrified of saying no that he consents in scare quotes.
So anyway, that is the perfectly normal backstory of the royal... Hello?
Where the heck is everyone?
Hello?
FBI, yeah, please trace this call, okay? I don't have much time. The dungeon master is unhinged. They must be stopped at any cost.
Hide from me.
Tell my family.
There is no escape.
I love them.
Meanwhile,
That isn't even important.
I thought that this would be a dark look into an
abusive marriage with the wife being a predatory drunk abuser.
But then the last straw came when there was a scene where we were infiltrating the palace and walked by the door and heard them doing intimate stuff. This scene was initially disturbing as we hear Sharura brutally beat their oldest son after he walked in on them, and then it became disgusting when it was implied that Ramiel enjoyed this treatment and essentially being... God, this is gross. With the justification being that he's a masochist. That was the final red flag for me to just drop out of the game. I said that I will never again play any games with this man as Dungeon Master anymore. TLDR, the DM turns an interesting plotline into his thing involving abuse towards a guy. Look, if the DM wants that kind of content in his personal life, that's his thing, and that's fine. But the second he starts bringing that out into the public domain without the consent of others, alright, that's when the flags are going up and the judgment is being raised up. The entire story surrounding this inappropriate situation is pretty NSFW with a lot of topics that people wouldn't be comfortable with. Clearly, people consented to that. But this is too far. It's something that I think you should be wary of. When you consent to certain NSFW content, you need to be wary of dungeon masters who look at that consent and go, oh, well then everything is okay, and then do something like this. Because guys, despite what said dungeon masters might think, it's definitely not okay. Alright, that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Tabletop Tavern Tips series, where we talk about D&D advice, both DMs and players, old and new. It's linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content right as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment, "You need consent," to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email linked in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, and that's like, comment, subscribe, I'll see you all next time. Farewell.
Oh crap! Almost snapped my fan. This is like a nice fan too. It's delicate, so that would have been really bad. That would have been